Yesterday's conspiracy theories, tomorrow's headlines. Most are still asleep and I ain't talking about no bedtime. The truth is not a Google search, you need to get your head right. The Greek goddess of illusion was called Media and I'm not a coincidence theorist, I look for thread lines. Smashing every deadline, no longer smashing red wine. Though I can hear the bells chime, it feels like the end times. That probably should have been smashed on red wine, but the carnal mind is foolish. Obey and end up ghoulish. Don't get used by instinct, take control and learn to use it. Make a load of earnest music, earn a few quid, learn a few tricks. Sure, the truth is persecuted, this whole world is pure abusive. Know a bit about everything and everything about nothing. Figured out my noggin while you picture out shopping. You sit about watching while I dish it out, stop it. I don't mean to sound cocky, I'm not even proud of it. It's a second nature to me, just to be this out honest. I don't even need to sound honest, never been about profit. Everything but out on it, you can bet your house on it. Doubt I'll be out for the count when the sounds, and I'm down for the beat, no beat down. I mean, how long's it been? Help me out. I've been the only one who's held me down. All in the mind, hell freeze now. Still sick with it, hell see how. Few bars down and the world freaked out. I don't reach out, I seek out to speak out. I'ma recount the reasons they beat out. I'm not the way, no way. I have seen the way. Speak, repeat, there's no way.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. I'm your host, Joseph Daniel Pena. This is the 509 Divine Plans podcast. So, what we got on today is my boy Rust77, I think it is from Instagram. He's a soil expert for cannabis, right? But he was a little busy. This is an interesting week. I've had 4 no-shows, so just strange. I've had weeks where people were spot on and even early, but I mean, it's the holidays. Hey, but while we're at it, we're just gonna go run through some news. I got some important things for you guys to see. Check this out, guys. You guys have not heard, there was a big fire over in New York, over at one of the police stations, and the evidence area. So, you know how that can go. This kind of sounds shady, am I right? Yeah. There were 8 injured, and people were speculating that the evidence goes back to at least 30 to 40 years. So it's pretty interesting. Like, we got some clips right here. I'm not gonna be able to play the audio, but we can just show you the video, and that's what we'll go ahead and do. 3 alarm fired up at a police evidence in New York City Tuesday. At least 8 people injured, including 6 first responders. A plume of smoke was seen over the New York Police Department evidence-controlled impound warehouse in Red Hook, Brooklyn, where Fire Chief John Hodgins said FDNY would be working for days to extinguish the flame. During a press conference Tuesday afternoon, Hodgins said FDNY responded to the fire call at the evidence warehouse located at 700 Columbia Street at about 10:37 a.m., but were unable to swiftly extinguish it. This fire is likely to go on for a few days by the time we are able to fully extinguish it, Hodgins said. He also said the facility housed a lot of combustible material, so a lot of explosives or maybe weapons, maybe gas. Right, so this is an evidence station. So over 50 years, 100 years, 30, plus, they got a lot of different things, explosives for sure, weapons for sure, armors, cars, different types of gas, different types of, yes, the chemicals, just everything. You can imagine it's going from the richest to the poorest and all of their taken possessions. Well, something like that. New York Police Department Chief Jeffrey Madry said the compound housed mainly evidence and a lot of biological material, including DNA and evidence collected in past crimes. So, a lot of DNA from past crimes, a lot of biological evidence, Interesting. Sounds pretty shady. I'll be real. So let's put this into picture. There's an evidence warehouse in New York, huge warehouse. In the area that the fire was a lot of combustible evidence that was surrounding a lot of biological material and DNA evidence from past crimes. So what could be combustible? I mean, let's just say it's in the same area, but I mean, unless the fire spread like quickly and across the whole selection. But it sounds pretty serious. Sounds pretty targeted. Hmm. The evidence goes back a long time, 20 or 30 years, he said. He also said the warehouse where the fire started included a number of motor vehicles and electronic bikes. We did not know the severity of the damage inside. He said the fire was initially reported by a contractor working inside the warehouse. Even more shady. We do not know exactly what happened. Firefighters battled the blaze and initially attempted an interior fire attack, but were unsuccessful in extinguishing the flame as it was too voluminous for their efforts, Hodgins said. The firefighters were overwhelmed and switched to an exterior attack. As of Tuesday evening, 3 New York police departments and 3 FDNY, as well as 2 civilians, were injured in the blaze. Their injuries were minor, Hodgins said. Hodges also said the FDNY was assisted by 3 fireboats that were pouring water on the fire. They were also utilizing drones in the air to pinpoint where the water should best be applied. So that's pretty interesting. They got some high-tech drones that can, like, on a real time, determine where we should apply or tactics. This could be used in a war zone. Have a drone up in the air and says, "Hey, you have to shoot here, this, shoot there." It could be used in space. Like, hey, there's minerals over here. We'll go this way. The storm's that way. Yeah, the AI and these drones now these days is pretty interesting. They're very high tech and they can very much help coordinate on the battlefield. Approximately 150 personnel with New York Police Department and FDNY were on the scene Tuesday afternoon. Their efforts continued into the night. New York City Council member Alexa Aviles later confirmed the injuries and urged residents to remain cautious of the ongoing recovery efforts. District 38 residents, you may see a black plume of some coming from Red Hook. Please be aware 6 first responders and 2 civilians were injured. It may take days to fully extinguish the fire, and the cause is still under investigation. A section of the warehouse later collapsed. Very interesting, guys. So this is one of the firefighters that was injured. He's wearing a mask. Mask on. Okay, mask on. Mask on. Moving forward, so I'm gonna harp on this a lot. Every time I see these type of things, I might even run them twice. Research links common sweetener with anxiety in mouse study. Researchers have linked the artificial sweetener aspartame to anxiety-like behavior in mice. So you know how they really have a lot of correlating data from mice studies to human studies that actually match up. So things that happen to mice, same thing happens to humans most of the time, half the time, a lot of the time for the health stuff. And yeah. So aspartame is that artificial sweetener in soda and a lot of other things. You know, it can be very much like similar to Splenda and those type of things. See, artificial sweeteners in general are all on the compound level and toxicity level of this. Very, very similar. An artificial sweetener found in nearly 5,000 diet foods and drinks. So, yeah, aspartame is in everything. I've been telling you guys this for a long time. Long, 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 long time. You gotta go organic and non-GMO, and you'll save yourself. You'll save your body. You'll save your mind. Yeah, literally everything will be better for you. You'll love it. You won't get anxiety. You won't get sick. You won't get cancers. You won't get inflamed easy. You just will feel better. Moving forward, guys. This is a short one, and I'm gonna run you over to Jason Burmis and a documentary by him. So look at this, look at this, look at this. Did the Aztecs use mountains to track the sun? According to the statement released by the University of California, Riverside, the Aztecs used the mountains of the Sierra Nevadas along the eastern edge of the basin in Mexico, in which Mexico City is located, as a solar observatory to track the sunrise. So let's just look at this. They kind of look triangle-ish, pyramid-ish. They did say Giza and some of these pyramids could track celestial, bodies. Not saying the sun, but hey, it's very much so that our ancient cultures could track the celestial movements and the movements of the seasons, very much so by their surroundings or purposely their architecture. Now, we do know that just like the Bosnian pyramid was once like this. On God, about 50 years ago, it was covered up in shrubbery, but now they're uncovering it, I believe. Pretty sure. Well, we know that that's the same case with a lot of other pyramids around the globe. Now, continuing on. Detailed knowledge of the movement of the sun and the timing of the dry and monsoon seasons would have been required in order to grow enough food to feed 3 million people thought to have lived in the region before the arrival of Europeans in 1519. Bullshit. Europeans arrived way earlier in 1300, but those not even the Europeans they weren't even good. Like, the story goes back way further. The Hebrews came back way before the Europeans, the Vikings, same thing. Modern history is bullshit. Anyways, the scientists led by ecologist Ezekiel Ezquerra began the search for a possible observation spot in the ancient Aztec text. Reference to Mount Tayaloc led them to a site of a temple on the summit of Mount Tayaloc. Then, using a computer model, the researchers determined that the causeway structure at the temple aligned with the rising sun on February 24th, the first day of the Aztec year. So there is a temple right here. You see that? Very interesting. Awesome. Very cool. I love to meditate there. Drink tea. Do ayahuasca. Get my Joe Rogan and Graham Hancock on. Ooh. When the sun rose at the landmark point behind the Sierras, they knew it was time to start planting. The Aztecs were just as good or better as the Europeans at timekeeping, using their own methods. Interesting. So we see this beautiful land. Just amazing what's out there. Green trees, blue skies all year long down there, South America. Well, this is California, but in Mexico and stuff, Central America. Well, actually, my bad. This isn't California. This is Central Mexico. This is written from a dude in California, but I'm up in the Pacific Northwest. So I wish I was down over here in Central America. Yes, you get it. All right, guys, check this out. I've been harping on this for all year long. when I was in the military about 10 years ago in the National Guard, only there for like 2 years, but in a short time that I had a good chance and good opportunity to meet and talk to a lot of higher ups and older people, sergeants, people who've been through the war. And one of the things that they had said is that our next warfare, World War II was fought with guns and tanks, a little bit of planes and stuff. Afghanistan, we started seeing more technology involved, and then he said our next war, World War IV-ish, like World War III, World War IV-ish, whatever, the next official set of warfare would be fought with chemicals and computers. So, you know, we kind of see what happened these last few years. There's a virus and chemical. It's like this biological chemical disruption warfare, right? Okay. And then this happens. F-35 pilots dressed for chemical and biological warfare from now on. So foreseeing the military wants to ramp up its biological and chemical warfare tactics, I'm guessing is a global. I mean, I understand that it is already part of their plan. If we look at their plans, very much out in the open. They want to ramp up the global politics and global war with it. So we're gonna just see technology be used. With technology, it targets the main cores of chemistry, biology. Uses radiology, attacks on a nuclear level. These things are very direct. Um, be prepared, just in the future, in the next 10 years, like better protect your health, your inner alchemy, and your biology. Protect yourself from radiation and nuclear environments. You know, you can really help yourself while there's a huge agenda to destroy you. All right, guys. That is that. But what I got for you is a present. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and play Shade the Motion Picture. All right, let's do this. Emergency preparedness, self-reliance. MyPatriotSupply.com. Get our survival seed bulb and feed your family from your own garden for just $37.95. Our non-hybrid heirloom seeds are genuinely American, just like you. Your survival needs and survival seeds are at MyPatriotSupply.com. MyPatriotSupply.com. Self-reliance. MyPatriotSupply.com.
Can you hear me all right?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
What's going on?
You're gonna have to turn off something in your background. I think I mute your speakers or something. I can hear myself. Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Oh yeah, I can hear you now. Cool. Hey. All right, so it's about 4:30. We can just run it or just play a little commercial, but play commercial in like 30 minutes or after an hour. How long were you staying on?
Maybe like half an hour.
Cool. All right. We'll just run it, guys. So what we just seen was Shade Motion Picture by the documentary film artist Jason Burmist, and a little bit of guidance from Alex Jones and a couple of other people. You seen Shepard Ambella, or I forget his name. Shepard. I know him by Shepard. You know what was going on in America. They're really showcasing, and it's very predictive of what was to come and what is coming. And when you read the ley lines and you actually study the blueprints and the agendas, everything matches up, man. Jason Burmist did a great job right there. We'll go ahead and continue that over on another day, probably. So right now we got my boy Brandon. Met him over at Instagram and a little bit of online cannabis communities. I found his work very interesting. He's very much into soil health and the health of cannabis. It's not just about like the dispensary and the looks. Like, man, there really goes more into it. Uh, like, you got to take care of your plants. So, my friend, can you go ahead and share what you do and tell my viewers a little bit about yourself?
Sure. For anybody who's not familiar with me, my name's Brandon Rust. You can find me on IG at Rust RUST Brandon BRANDON, and also Bokashi Earthworks, BokashiEarthworks.com. So what I specialize in is cannabis agronomy. So I look at soil data and then I, give recommendations on what needs to be added to that soil for that soil to meet the target nutritional requirements for, the specific crop. I also own Bokashi Earthworks. So I have a consulting company where that's one of the things that I do. I also own Bokashi Earthworks, and what we do is we specialize in green waste recycling. We take waste from other industries and we do solid state fermentation on that, and then turn that into biofertilizers, which is a carbon rich fertilizer that also contains a plethora of different types of microorganisms that have benefits to both the soil and the plant. We manufacture the microbial consortium for the fermentation process, and which can also be used in fertigation programs to help things like nutrient cycling and organic systems and pathogen suppression. And then we also have organic amendments, and we manufacture soil as well. So we kind of do a lot of things. Me personally, I've been cultivating cannabis for a little over 21 years. So I'm kind of all over the place. I work mainly as a consultant in cannabis, but I work, you know, my company distributes agricultural products across more than just the cannabis industry.
That sounds amazing. Honestly, that was actually about to be my next question. If your products could be used for other agriculture and other fruits and vegetables. See, I'm here in Washington State, Yakima Valley, so I got hops, cherries, berries, apples, cannabis, everything literally. So, I'm sure that if I use some of your products, then I would see a massive bloom in literally everything. And let's go ahead and hear something about your new products. That way we can go ahead and get my viewers onto something fresh from you.
Sure. So we have a product called Smart Carbon. It is a humate based or carbon based fertilizer. It contains all of the macro, secondary, and micronutrients needed for healthy plant growth. And all of those elements are chelated, or they are kept in a form that is biologically available to the root zone. And because it is carbon chelated, all of those molecules are attached to carbon. It acts as a biostimulant for the soil microbiology as well. And so when you stimulate the soil biology, it helps to solubilize inorganic elements into plant available form, helps with the creation of new soil. It helps with the retention of water. So it has a lot of beneficial effects that come along with the increase in fertility that comes from the mineral nutrition. So it can be used just like chemical synthetic agricultural chemicals are used, but they don't have the detrimental impacts that those types of chemical fertilizers have on the soil. This doesn't acidify soil. It actually helps with the creation of new soils and all those benefits that I just mentioned. So there's that. And it's really interesting because the fertilizer can actually be formulated for any crop. So if you're running your cherry trees, or if you're running hops or corn or soy or tomatoes or cucumbers, as an agronomist, typically what'll happen is a farmer will look and have an agronomist come and say, hey, this is what the soil profile looks like according to lab results. What do I need to add to this? And you can, they'll usually give a recommendation on what needs to be brought in. And we can do the same thing with these types of fertilizers. So there's that. That's a liquid 1-part homogeneous fertilizer developed by NASA Agricultural Technologies. And then we also have things like the biofertilizers, which are also carbon-based fertilizers that we manufacture out of organic waste from other industries. Currently, we're doing hemp biomass waste, where we take spent biomass from CBD processing and manufacturing, and we turn that into bokashi fertilizer. So what we do is we take that biomass and we add in a certain consortium of microorganisms. We add a complex carbohydrate and water, and we do what's called a solid state fermentation. So we hydrate the moisture and we let it ferment in a fermentation vessel, which basically composts that material very, very rapidly. It completely composts that material and releases all of the available nutrient and mineral nutrition that is trapped in that organic material, and it makes it bioavailable. So we ferment it, we dry that out, and then what we're going to be doing is, currently you can use it just as a top dress once it's dry, but we're also going to take a step further, and we're going to do something called agglomeration, which pelletizes it to make it into a slow release fertilizer. And again, this is all organic and a process of that's done from the recycling of organic waste products. So it's a way to decrease carbon footprint and get a lot of this organic waste back into the soil. And anytime that we're talking about anything organic, it's synonymous with carbon. So when I'm talking about putting organic fertilizers, organic biofertilizers back into the soil, we're talking about fertilizing adding soil back into the or adding carbon back into the soil.
And this could work in greenhouse, indoor, and maybe like underwater soil if you're like trying to grow some algae or something, maybe.
Yes, it actually does. It works in all of those applications, and that's very astute of you to think of the applications for growing things like spirulina, which is a type of algae. So they can be used in a lot of different systems. This fertilizer was originally developed for um, agro systems that have really, really poor soils. And it was used because if we're looking at the majority of the land in the world, the just as it sits naturally, it usually isn't fertile enough to be heavily cropped, for food production. And
Yeah,
so,
especially in the last 50 years with the half-life after the degradation of pesticides and these poisons,
yeah,
Monsanto. And
yeah. So, the last 50, 60 years, we've mostly done monocropping of things like corn and soy in America. Also, wheat and stuff, but mostly for the product for cattle production, stuff like that. Um, but when and yes, you're right. We've acidified a lot of the soil. The organic matter content, which should be around 5%, which is ideal, in most cases is less than 1%, and so we're essentially farming with agrochemicals in soils that are no longer alive. They're farming in dirt most of the times. And when you use a product like Bokashi biofertilizers, or if you use something like the humate based fertilizers, essentially what we're doing is we're increasing the organic matter content of those soils with every application. And so we're able to build up that soil organic matter percentage. And
and
that
so
helps.
if
Go
we
ahead.
use this in our garden, then we have chickens. Our chickens would probably like snack on the garden and probably be healthier if our animals are snacking on these pastures that we use this product on, then probably better.
Sure. Well, you think about it like this. Chickens are natural scavengers, so they're going to pretty much eat anything. So let's say you have waste. You can always take your waste from, what you're eating. You can always feed that to your chickens, and that will essentially like kind of close the loop, or you're not producing waste. As opposed to maybe composting that or using it in a vermicomposting system where you're feeding it to earthworms, or maybe you're doing bokashi composting. So there's different ways that you can approach utilizing this waste. The reason why we're doing the bokashi composting is it's because it can be done on an industrial scale. And so if we're producing, metric tons, millions and millions of tons of organic waste, as a country, we have to have comprehensive solutions to be able to not fill up landfills with that organic waste that should essentially um, can be recycled into fertilizers, be made into fertilizers to increase soil health and fertility, and increase that soil carbon, that organic content, and essentially be able to change the way that we produce food. It's going to help in all of those systems. It's not just for outdoor crops. It can be used in greenhouse settings. It can be used for your garden at home. I highly recommend that people go and check out the website, which is, WokashiEarthworks.com, and check out, the Microbe Plus, check out the Humate fertilizer, and grow your own food, because if you can produce your own healthy vegetables and things of that nature, herbs and stuff like that, you're going to have a higher nutritional content in that produce that you're producing than what is, conventionally being farmed and what's available in the grocery stores.
I definitely started using Dino Myco last year to help out my soil, and I noticed a boost. So when I was listening to Growcast over the last year and started really get into more of this soil health, I started looking into products and thinkers like you, and so this is interesting, to see how much of a boost would you notice like eh, your crops it would with your products.
Well, here's the difference is huge, and this is why, because you're cutting costs and you're actually increasing the use efficiency. And I'm going to give you an example here. So, in conventional crop production, or in conventional, let's say, hydroponic applications, you're going to get something like diammonium phosphate or monoammonium phosphate is going to be usually your phosphorus and nitrogen source in these base fertilizers. Usually they're like the core fertilizer, or it's like the starter fertilizers that's used. Now, the issue with that is as soon as the phosphorus and the ammonium is put into soil and it is and water is introduced, that those compounds, they disassociate from each other, and so you have a positively charged phosphorus anion and or a negatively charged phosphorus anion and a positively charged nitrogen uh, uh, particle. And that phosphorus will actually tie up. It'll bind with things like calcium and iron and zinc and copper. And so what ends up doing is you only get about 10 to 15% use efficiency out of a product, even though that diammonium phosphate might be like 44% phosphorus. Only 10% of that is going to actually be available, and then the rest of it is actually going to tie up. You're going to have or not all of it, but a large percent of that is going to tie up the mineral nutrition that's already in the soil, rendering it unavailable to the plant. So that's one of the problems that you have. And the same thing with the nitrogen, right? Because nitrogen is highly biologically active. It goes through nitrification and denitrification, and a lot of what is put into the soil will actually, denitrify and be converted into atmospheric nitrogen. And so you lose a lot of what you're going to be putting in there. Not to mention that only 2% of that will even come in contact with the root zone. So we're looking at nutrient use efficiency of 10% divided by 2%, which is like 0.002%. And so the use efficiency for something like that is very, very small. The humate fertilizer, it has a 96% nutrient use efficiency, and the reason why that is because it doesn't react in water and it doesn't react with other elements. It's carbon chelated, so it stays in the mineral elements, they stay in a metabolically available form until they're either utilized by the soil microbes, by the biology in the soil, or they're utilized by the plant in the root zone. And so you get a much higher use efficiency when you have a carbon chelated fertilizer as opposed to something that is synthetic, that disassociates all of its anions in water and is highly reactive with hydrogen and in these soil systems. So
let's just say that if we go outside, we can imagine when we use this product over about a year, I would imagine the electricity would just be a little higher in the soil. Like you can feel like a little bit more vibrancy in your soil and your plants. They're a little bit more alive. For sure,
you should
right?
have let me give you an example. There was testing done in China, for example, using the humate fertilizers, and they took this specific rice cultivar, which was regularly cultivated, and it was hitting 6% protein content, and they ended up switching over to the humate fertilizer, and they increased that protein content of that rice to 11%, and then they doubled the yield. So they were able to get an additional harvest in the same growing season, and also increasing the protein. So they doubled yields and doubled the protein content of that. So it's a huge difference in what it's able to do. I'm going to give you another example. We just did a trial run at a college in Illinois, in central Illinois, and they did a couple acres of sunflowers and a couple acres of pumpkins. And I gave them, I think, 5 gallons of approximately 19 liters for those for the acreage, which I think it was a total of 3.5 acres that they fertilized. And they ended up only using, I think, 3 of the gallons of fertilizer, and they produced, a massive amount of sunflowers and pumpkins. They ended up selling all the pumpkins to a local farm, their college. That they had a huge flatbed truck that must have had like 24 Uh, you know those big ass tubs that they have at Walmart, the cardboard ones that they're all filled up with pumpkins. They must have had like 24 of those things loaded up on that truck, and they still had pumpkins left over. You can actually see the story. I think it's on my feed on IG, and then there's even a USA article. I think that might talk USA Today article. If you Google Bokashi Earthworks, that might talk a little bit about it. But these things have a really, really great nutritional or nutrient use efficiency, and you know, at a time, and the application is because they're you know has a higher efficiency. You can use less of it, so it's cheaper for a farmer overall.
I'm kind of wondering now what this would be like along our riverbed systems, and if we use this in some of these really swampy areas and around those areas where there already is a lot of soil and a lot of vegetation, a lot of damage still. You know, I'd imagine you'd be able to restore a lot of environments. This sounds pretty amazing. All right, so Lizard, anything more you can go ahead and talk about while we go ahead and finish up the 30 minutes, or we can continue on. You can go ahead and speak about your products or why you were so interested in the first place in doing these type of things. Did you like smoke cannabis, and or were you a gardener from the beginning and started getting into this?
Yeah, so I was smoking when I was 15. I was selling a little pot here and there. I was always looking for the best weed, looking for that high grade. And when I was 18, I was introduced to some OGs, and they kind of brought me under their wing. Years down the line, after after I had been growing for a really long time, I decided to switch over to try out organic cultivation, and I just really delve into that. And at the time, I was using a Bokashi product. I learned more about Bokashi composting, and I just kind of started a business because I was using the products. Just kind of like I used to sell weed so I could smoke, right? I just, I was growing weed and I was using enough of this product that it made sense for me to make it on my own. So I just started making it on my own, and all the leftovers that I had, I would sell it to my friends and stuff like that. And I started a business out of doing that with the Bokashi, and then it just kind of turned into the microbe manufacturing, having other types of mineral and organic amendments available, consulting, building soils, just all of that. It just all came together over the last couple of years since I've been in Oklahoma. I've worked in large scale cannabis cultivation with a lot of success. The people I work with are all grown great products, and they're all real consistent. And so we're just I was able to kind of use cannabis to showcase the products, and kind of the innovative side of what can be utilized in the future, instead of having a reliance on chemical agro industry and pesticides and the harmful things that can come from the use of an over application of those types of chemical fertilizers and pesticides.
So you would already have tested some hash rosin from your soils. Just much better. Much
Yes.
better, right?
Yeah. So it's interesting that you say that, because just the other day I got a message from somebody that I consult with, and they were somebody that's new to the consulting side. Like, a lot of people aren't familiar. They'll try to build recipes for their cannabis and do this and this, or follow nutrient protocols or whatever. I have a strong focus on testing the soil and bringing it back to a specific target or a specific nutrient profile that's based off of the data that's collected. That way they know exactly what they need to do from that point forward. So there's no guesswork really involved. And it's just more cost effective. Sorry, what was your question? I got
The hash
sidetracked.
rosin.
Yeah, they increased they had a cultivar they were gonna scrap, in this particular instance, they ran these recs, they reran the cut that they had, and they ended up testing. I think they said he was usually in a 16 to 70%. He ended up getting that up to 24%, and his terps were about one up to like 2 and 2.8 or something like that. But always in organic soil, you're gonna get better flavor profiles, and the reason is because there's a lot of biochemical mechanisms that are happening. There are things like phytohormones that trigger different responses in plants. There are different stress factors, and then there's also, you know, the balancing act that happens with the internal charge of the plant, where the plant can utilize some of the soil carbon in the form of like carbonate, for instance, to do charge balancing. But that's really complicated, and really what it comes down to is that you don't really need to know all the science. It's just a practical application of the stuff, and I make that really easy by just giving a recommendation that says add this much of this to this amount of soil, and that's what I do with my consults. I use it makes it real easy.
I always like to say, like, you do half the work with your garden, and your garden will do the other half. As long as you really actually set it up and formulate it right and just let it like grow proper, it'll grow proper, and then
Yeah,
you just don't have to like really
we
mess
have
with
we
it.
have we have standard operating procedures that are written in place that cover everything from your vapor pressure deficit, your temperature, your humidity, your lighting parameters, integrated pest management protocols, handling protocols, biosecurity protocols, everything that you could possibly think of. It's written down on what that looks like for every single point in the cycle. So as long as you are following those particular parameters and everything is on point, you're gonna have a good result. And that's how corn and soy and everything else is done. It's done at large scales using agronomic data, and it can be done at real small scales, craft, and it makes it really simple for the farmers because it's more cost effective when you're re-amending, doing top dressing based off of data using raw ingredients, and then just stick to a really easy microbe and humate kind of fertilization plan.
This is amazing. So what is in the future? Is there anything that you guys are working on?
Yeah, so we're working on a government grant for $3 million so that we can expand our fertilizer production and the distribution of that fertilizer. It'll help with marketing, branding, educational content, that types of things. We are working on we are also working on converting a very large, well, not a really large, I guess it's a medium-sized facility, um, and from all hydroponics to living soil, and that's going to be a big undertaking, where we're taking down all high pressure sodium lights and implementing all LEDs, living soil, the whole 9 yards. So that's a project that's currently underway, and then we're just working on expanding the business because we've kind of outgrown our current location, and so we're just doing our thing. We're going through some growing pains, but it's all good. It's a good problem to have. But
Hey,
it's about time for me to go, so I should
yeah, I was
probably.
going to say, you want to let my viewers know it's about to hit 5, where they can find you?
Yeah, sure. You can find me on Instagram at rust.brandon, and then Bokashi Earthworks. That's Bokashi. Earthworks, all one word. BokashiEarthworks.com. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on YouTube. It's all out there.
Hey, yeah, we'll go ahead and have you on another time, maybe just, casually on through the months, just to talk about some soil health and just a little cannabis here and there.
Sounds good. Have a good night.
Hey, you have a great time. Thank you for your time. Happy New Year's and happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Hey, peace. All right, guys, you guys have heard that. Hey, remember, your physical health and your soil health is hand in hand. It's literally very important for both of them. When you go outside, you just can't throw a seed in the ground. Water it and let it grow and think you're gonna have the most amazing harvest. Like, no. It's more than that. The soil health is key. My boy Brandon Rust knows more than me, and you guys heard it right there. So what I could do is run the rest of this documentary for you, but we might go ahead and hold that off until tomorrow, and I'm just gonna rerun it tomorrow. And hey, I'm gonna head out of here. You guys have a wonderful night. Take care. Be high. Be blessed. Peace out.
Meditating, analyzing everything I see, so I see new horizons. Took the acid, feeling blasted in my brain, so I've been sitting up inside it, thinking about the present and the future. I'm improving cause I am a trooper, never getting caught up in the loop. Got up out it cause I found the truth. Woke up to a beauty of the day, the sun is shining, so I'm finna stay sitting, soaking up all of the rays, till I feel it surging through my brain like some booger sugar. Did a lot of cane, experimented with it, couldn't name all the times I did it, feeling like a fade. Yeah, I'm really glad that I let it go, cause I gotta be prepped for the time when the plane ride is a new norm. So I know I'm gonna stay high, blaze on the ganja, feeling like I make my music go to another level while I take off. I can't ever stop this, fell in love with it, fit like a glove, so I'm never ever done with it. So now I'm about to rip another beat, ayy. One day I'll make a million in a week, yeah, shooting for the top spot. Feel like I'm a hot shot, like I really got a chance with it. I will not flop, somebody gonna make a dance when I pop off. Gonna have all the bitches taking all the tops off. I've been feeling like I'm really gonna kill it for the rest of my life, so I've been staying focused. In my soul, I've been feeling like $1 million, so I know that everything is really getting closer. Yeah, no posers, only been hanging with the ones I've chosen. Only all the people that are living in the right way, cause they spending every day growing. Yeah, no whole shit coming in my life and then leaving in a moment. That's the shit I'll never let into my life again, cause lately I've been feeling like I'm golden. Never showboat, I just showcase on my music that I made this far. Always knew that I could be the one that would get this far. Now I'm right here looking in my mirror, trying to figure out if there's any more fear, cause I'm getting rid of it all, yeah, I'm getting rid of it all. Meditating, analyzing everything I see, so I see new horizons. Took the acid, feeling blasted in my brain, so I've been sitting